All right, y'all, here are 5 tips for insuring your rental properties. Tip number 1, be sure that you only use carriers, not necessarily your broker, but your carrier is an authorized provider by the state in which your rental property is located, right? So every state has what's called the Department of Insurance, and it's one of those situations where they're going to help you they basically help ensure that the insurers keep up their end of the bargain, right? And when they don't, you can file a formal complaint with the state's Department of Insurance in which that provider or carrier now has to respond to the state's inquiry, right? Otherwise, you have no additional help when trying to battle a provider in your state unless you want to hire an attorney. And on a couple of different scenarios this last year, the estimated legal cost when you want to battle an insurance, especially in our claims, was going to be around $30,000 for me to attempt to get some money from the insurance companies, and that's about the size of our claim, so we didn't do that. But be sure, tip number 1, be sure that you only use carriers that are an authorized provider in the state in which your rental property is located, okay? Tip number 2, only make a claim if it's a catastrophic event or a total loss. What I mean by this is, let me give you an example here. We made a claim on the roof of our fourplex, right, after a hurricane came through. Now, this was a named storm, right? 33% of our roof had damage. It was missing shingles, right? Meaning in the local codes require that anything over 25% of shingle loss, we have to do an entire total roof replacement, right? So this was a $25,000 job. Very tall building. It's like 35, almost 4,000 square foot. It was a $25,000 job. We had Lloyd's in London as our carrier at the time. Don't use them, by the way. Never use them whatsoever. In the state of Alabama, they are not an authorized insurance provider, so I had no help from the Department of Insurance for the state of Alabama. But never use Lloyd's in London, Allstate, or State Farm for insurance in the state of Alabama. But after a year of battling with Lloyd's in London, a couple of things happened. Number 1, they dropped us. Right? They gave us a 30-day notice right up to the annual year of our renewal. That's after battling us for the last 11 months on this claim. Secondly, our claim was denied. I am putting on this smile for you guys because this was a painful experience, but our claim was denied. And the third thing that really happened was our property went into this master database that all insurance providers have access to, stating that a claim was made on the property, right? Yep. So here's what happened. So we now have higher premiums for over the next 3 years, simply because we made a claim. It's not because a claim was paid out, but it's because we made a claim, right? And so, yeah. So by the way, I think I said this a minute ago, but Lloyd's in London is not an authorized provider in the state of Alabama. Don't ever use them. Don't ever use State Farm or Allstate for insuring your rental properties, or quite frankly, I wouldn't suggest to use them for anything that you do. And those 3 companies, they came from attorneys that we were consulting with about a potential lawsuit, and all of them had the same list. It says, hey, if you're a landlord, you should never use the State Farm, Allstate, or Lloyd's in London for your rental property. So tip number 3, right? Make sure you have coverage for loss of rents due to a catastrophic event, right? We have healthy reserves because of that, but having loss of rents or cash flow covered is something we want to make sure happens, right? Because that is one of our main principles for investing, is for that cash flow. And if a catastrophic event happens, it takes that property down. That cash flow never happens. Now, insurance may pay for getting it put back together, but we want to make sure we have coverage for loss of rents if nobody's living there because of the catastrophic event, right? So, which kind of leads me to step number 4, make your deductibles align with your comfort level of making a claim, right? The higher the deductible, the lower your premium should be, right? So the lower your premium is, the better the cash flow. But if you don't have healthy reserves, or you're building up to healthy reserves, you might want to have a lower deductible. You're gonna have a little bit higher premium, but you're gonna also have a little bit lower cash flow, right? So make your deductibles align with your comfort level of making a claim, okay? But tip number 5 is, you don't have to wait for your renewal to shop around, right? Even if you paid for your premium upfront for a year, which is typically required as you close on a property. You know, at closing, they're going to make you come with some fees and everything else that comes along with buying a property. In that is typically your insurance premium for the first year, right? But during that first year, or anytime you pay, if you pay for your insurance annually, you find a better policy. If you find a better policy and it has a lower premium, you're going to be issued a refund for those credits that weren't applied to your future use of that insurance policy, right? So tip number 5 is you don't have to wait for your renewal to shop around. Okay. So here's why I'm telling you guys this, and here's why I'm making this video or podcast, ever how you're listening to this, is the last year has been a school of hard knocks education for me in the insurance department across 3 of our properties, right? And the stress and anxiety all began in May, and all those 5 tips I just gave you, I learned very quickly about all those, and I was like, man, if I would only known. So I received a letter in the mail back in May. Right. This was a letter from our lender on our 16-unit property that we have with some partners. And the letter stated, and you've probably seen this before, is that our insurance had or is about to expire, and I needed to provide them with updated information. Right. So I took a picture of the letter and I emailed it to our insurance broker at the time. I copied our lender and our property manager. I don't want to get into the property manager thing. That was a whole other fiasco. I'm not going to get off that topic. Anyway, so I'm thinking, hey, man, maybe this could have been missed or whatnot. And sometimes these letters are a little threatening or demanding, and it kind of really caught me off guard because I thought we were covered, right? And then I thought, well, no, we're not covered. Our insurance premium was missed. What do we do, right? So right away, our insurance broker is very responsive, right? And at the time, he responded very quickly, and he replied and said, hey, don't worry about this. We've got you covered. Okay, so that was the 1st of May, and that was essentially what he said. Don't worry, we got you covered. Now let's fast forward to the middle of June. It was Thursday, June the 16th. We're living our nomadic lifestyle. I'm trying to relax. We're sitting in a cabin near the Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia, and I get a call from this insurance broker's assistance, right? And here's how kind of the call went. It went, hey, Mr. Helms, calling to let you know your insurance premium on your 16-unit property is due tomorrow. And I wanted to call because it's a little higher than last year's, right? I said, okay, all right. I expected to be higher, but what are we talking about here? And she replies, well, your new premium is $7,500. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was somewhere around there, right? And I was floored. Whoa, wait a minute. Can you tell me like what our current premium is or what it was last year? That seems like a little more than just a little higher, right? And very quickly, yes, sir, your current premium was $4,800. And I'm totally caught off guard. Now I'm pissed off, right? It's not a little higher. That's more than a 50% increase. We're not going to do that. We will not be able to do that. And she comes back, well, Mr. Helms, your current policy expires by 5 o'clock tomorrow. So this has to be bound today. We've got to get your approval for this today. And then she led into all the excuses of why it was more expensive due to COVID. Insurance company blamed COVID. I think gas prices were in there as well. And then she went on to say about where the property was located. And they've done their best, right? They've shopped around, and this is the best price for a comparable price or comparable coverage that they were able to get for us, right? Not their fault, somebody else's fault. And so all that, I'm getting pretty furious because remember, back in May, this started back in May where I said, hey guys, what's going on, right? I'm trying to relax. I get this phone call at the 11th hour. Hey, you got to pay a 50% increase on your insurance premium or else, right? And it really was. I take ownership for not diving into it more at that time, but it really was the way the assistant presented it, right? Not taking responsibility for their company, putting me in this situation. Like if they would have called me a couple weeks ahead of time and said, hey, here's what's happening. You want to shop around, we can try to do something else. Didn't happen, right? It was, they've done all they could. You got to sign this. It's somebody else's problem. So I found STEADILY, right? And they only focus on insurance for landlords. They're my new favorite partner for the W-2 capitalist. And I went down this partnership road with them because of how they handled this situation that I just described in our 16 unit, right? One rep in particular, his name's Samir. In fact, I try to sit there and replay, like, if I'm on the other end of that phone call and I get a phone call from me, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, I'm frantically trying to get this thing done. I'm trying to relax. I'm frustrated. I'm in a cabin. Like I have hardly cell service because we're on the side of a mountain. So I'm angry, right? But it was his poise and the way, his ability just to listen to the situation, the goal that I was trying to accomplish. He actually stayed late. Like, we worked on this to like 7 or 8 o'clock at night that same night, right? He responded and followed up like he promised. It was like, hey, it's going to take me an hour to get to this. Let me work on it. I'll call you back in an hour and 20 minutes. I set an alert on my timer on my phone. Hour and 15, here's the phone call, right? It was just the way that he handled that. And so working with STEADILY, we found a policy that not only provided better coverage than our previous one, but it also was near last year's cost. I think it was even like $100 less than what we had paid for the previous year. So no increase, right? And it's not that they saved us, right, thousands of potential dollars toward a new insurance premium, but it's how they did it, right? It's the way they did it. It's the way Sumir approached the entire situation, took time to listen and understand what I was trying to do. And just as a reminder, as with all our affiliates and partners, we have 5 or 6 of them, right, that I talk about here on the W2 Capitalist. I use all of them myself before I talk about becoming a potential partner, approaching them about becoming a potential partner with them. And most of our partners don't even know that I'm have a small following, right? And so when we enter the conversation of me becoming a customer, I typically just sign up either with a personal email address or one of our investing entity addresses, so they don't even know that I have the W2 Capitalist or whatnot. So I don't ever want to recommend to y'all anything that I'm not using myself. And STEADILY is one of those situations, right? They now have coverage on 20 of our 21 self-managed units. And so they just get us as landlords. They just simply get us. They're my new hero, right? So if I can make a suggestion, regardless of how you're consuming this content, either through a podcast or through YouTube, or wherever you're getting it, regardless of if you just paid your annual premium in advance, somewhere around this, where you're consuming this, there's going to be a link to start a quote with STEADILY today, right? I think you're going to be impressed at how fast they are to get back with you. But fill out the form, get a quote started today. And in the same area, there's going to be a link to grab my 21-day due diligence guide for free, right? So this is a 21-day due diligence guide that helps you perform, 21 days of due diligence without spending money, which is huge, right, into an opportunity. And we're going to eliminate the risk on your earnest money deposit, right? So I also go into in this document, I also go into the 16 in this document. I also go into the 16 documents you need to request from your seller to make sure you're doing proper due diligence. Okay, so make sure you grab both of those, grab the due diligence guide, and also grab the link to start a quote with STEADILY today. And remember, and just as a recap, here are the 5 tips for insuring rental properties. Number 1, be sure that you only use carriers that are an authorized provider of the state in which your rental property is located. Number 2, only make a claim if it's a catastrophic event or total loss. Make sure you have coverage for loss of rents due to this catastrophic event. And number 4, make your deductibles align with your comfort level of making a claim, right? And number 5, you don't have to wait for your annual renewal to shop around. Don't know why I just pointed, but I did.